Hello everyone, Sheldon with iHardware here. In today's video I'm going to be doing an overview of the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. This was Nintendo's second console next to the original Nintendo Entertainment System, and was a huge success in the United States and in Japan. So starting off here at the top we have our power. Let me take this cartridge out so you guys can get a better view of all that. On the top we have the power button. You have a note about the powering it on and off, the eject button which presses down and lets you take out the cartridge, and then you have the reset button, and then the slot for the cartridge here, and the Super Nintendo logo right there, so I can't have the tripod in the way, and then you have the Nintendo logo on the top. On both the right and the left side there's nothing special, but on the front you have your two controller ports and your power LED. So as you guys can probably see right here on the front is that also right here it has yellow, just like on my NES, how the flap that covers up the cartridge slot turned yellow a bit. Same right here. This is the only part that I've noticed on this whole console that has turned yellow. I could fix this, but it's not a big deal right now. If, say, I plan on selling it or doing anything with it in the future where I want to kind of show it aesthetically, then yes, I'll probably get that yellowing cleaned up a bit, but nothing too big to worry about. And then on the back, as you guys can see, compared to the original NES, which is different, the AV out is now a proprietary plug that goes into your normal color-coded yellow, red, and white plugs. So on the original NES, you had just a red and yellow plug, so for audio, for right audio and your video. So there was no stereo sound on the NES. Actually, there was, but the chip. It's a long story in that, but the Super Nintendo was Nintendo's first console to have stereo sound, which was the big plus. The only problem was is that they had this connector, so you couldn't use just any plugs that you already had laying around the house. But hey, it wasn't a big deal since they did use the same connector on the N64 and I believe, yes, on the GameCube, and then they stopped using it though on the Wii. So over here, the nice part is about the Super Nintendo 2 is that this is now the standard connector, the main connector. That's the cord you get. It also came with an RF switch, so you were able to use both. But by 1991, everyone pretty much had the standard connectors on the back for AV, so that was the way to go. You have your channel switch right here for channel 3 and 4, and then you have your AC adapter DC, and then it's 10 volts. So the problem that usually occurred with the Super Nintendo was that this power plug right here, you guys can see, is plastic. So compared to the NES, this broke off quite a bit. If you ever see problems with NES, people get them for really cheap, is mainly because this connector breaks off. People can fix it, except you have to get a proprietary screwdriver to open up the console itself just to be able to replace the whole power jack. I believe you have to replace this whole entire I/O shield pretty much in the back just to fix the whole thing. So that's pretty much it for the back, and then you have your 1-800 number back, which is actually the same number that Nintendo still uses for all of their products. Right here on the back you have your model and all that, copyright 1991 Nintendo on the bottom right there, and then it's a little scratched up a bit, that's mainly because it's a little silver right here. You have all of your other information, you have your barcode, and then lastly on the back you have your expansion port. So if you guys know the history behind this, you're going to know what I'm going to talk about for a minute here. This expansion port was not planning on being used when any Super Nintendo was first released. When it was first released, they had no plans on it, and then later on in the console's life, kind of right before they released the N64, a little bit before that, they were going to come out with Philips had partnered with them, and we're going to come out with a CD deck that you could put in here. Basically, you'd be able to put CDs in, kind of like what Sega was doing with their Sega CD. Don't really know the history behind that, but pretty much, yeah, it was going to be a disc games. There was going to be some games on disc and all that. But then I guess Nintendo did something. Philips left them. I guess they created the Philips CDI, and then I think actually Sony might have done something too, and they ended up stealing the idea. They were working with Nintendo on something too. They stole the idea, and that's how the PlayStation 1 came to be, and all of the later PlayStations came out, because Nintendo made some bad decisions, and you could say too that Nintendo, if they hadn't done that, PlayStation wouldn't exist. Possibly Xbox, Microsoft might have been the only one. Who knows? They might not even have came out if it, depending on what could have happened. So that's pretty much it for the game cartridges. Though the Super Nintendo, which was nice about it compared to the original NES, is it did not use it didn't use the kind of cartridge loading system that it did on the NES, where you pressed it in and then pressed the cartridge down to bend the pins and stuff. The nice part about this is it was just go, plug it in, nothing you had to do. Possibly have to clean the pins on the cartridge after a long period of time, but I haven't had a problem with my Super Nintendo not working correctly, or having to do any special tricks just to get the cartridge to work like I do on the NES. Then lastly, we have the controller right here. So compared to the original NES controller, it does have. It was also known as the dog bone controller, mainly because yes, it does look like kind of like a dog bone, that stereotypical look. So you have your normal numpad. I do like the one on the NES a little bit better. It seemed to be a little bit more robust. But hey, when you're kind of walking around and stuff, this one's kind of nice. You do still have your select and start buttons right here, your Nintendo logo. And then something noticeably different was that on the original NES, they had the A and B buttons only. But when the Super Nintendo launched, they had the Y and the X buttons added, and the two trigger buttons on the back. So pretty much this was the first controller to have the trigger buttons and this is pretty much standard on all controllers, even to the modern ones nowadays with the Xbox One and the PS4. So that was cool. Another innovating feature with the trigger buttons and stuff, which was quite nice, especially when playing a lot of games on the Super Nintendo, such as Super Mario World. So guys, that's pretty much it. That was my overview and quick history of the Super Nintendo Entertainment System from Nintendo, of course. If you guys want to see any more reviews, the next review will be on my Nintendo 64. Personally, my favorite console, mainly because I grew up with it, and that was the console I used while everyone else had the GameCube. I'll get more into that when I do the overview, but looking forward to that, guys, so stay tuned for that. If you guys like the video, make sure to like it. If you guys want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe too. So, hey, guys, thanks for watching.